Welcome to the Level Up series. And we are right now on the 8th level of this crazy fun video game that Six Sense started. And if you've been following along, this is the final episode and the final level of the Level Up series. Now, again, I mentioned this a second ago, but if you weren't able to join us for the previous levels, you can watch them on demand. We started this thing 8 months ago, believe it or not. And in those 8 months, we've covered, a simple 5-step process to getting your ABM campaigns launched. We've talked about getting sales involved. We've deep dived into content marketing and digital marketing, personalization and campaign execution. And of course, yes, we need to now talk a little bit about measurement. And so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart and to the folks on the line. And so with that, I would say we should congratulate all of you for making it to this final level. The link here that is on the slide, and Victoria, I think you'll drop it into the actual chat. This is where you can find all the different past versions and past levels of the Level Up series. And again, congrats to everyone for making it to the final level. And so who do we have on today? Well, we've got some great experts. So I'm Saima Rashid. I run marketing at Six Sense, and I have spent probably the first 20 years of my career around measurement of marketing, sales, and customer success programs. So again, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. But I'm going to not do so much of the talking today because we have Colleen and Ben on as well. Colleen Fogarty runs partner marketing at a company called Atos, and Ben Romberg is head of strategy and planning at Gilroy. I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves and, of course, tell us a little bit about what you do and where you work. Colleen first.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction, and really pleased to be here with everybody. So my name's Colleen Fogarty, and I did mention that I live in Liverpool, but you might be able to tell that I don't have quite a Liverpool accent. I'm actually originally from Chicago. So nice to see some fellow Chicago folk here as well. I head up our partner marketing and alliance program for Atos, and I'll tell you a little bit about Atos in a minute. I probably spent the last 20 years in marketing and communications. But prior to that, I actually started my career in sales. I worked for ADP, which a lot of you may know or had a paycheck from them at one point or another. So I try to always bring a sales kind of background and always keep that line of sight of the customer when I look at marketing campaigns, programs, and events. So hopefully maybe we could have a little bit of insight with that. Atos, just to tell you a little bit about Atos, we are one of the biggest secrets in the IT world, actually. We're a global leader, 92,000 employees, and a revenue of about 10 billion. We look at a lot of things around cybersecurity, cloud, high processing performance, and cybersecurity for our customers. So we work across kind of all industries, but particularly in very bespoke sort of high-level organizations, and we're really dedicated to what we do in development in the scientific community, in technology, and in excellence. Really, Atos is all about kind of enabling customers, employees, and members of society to live, work, and develop sustainably in a safe and secure information space. So we're really proud of that, actually. We do work with several industry verticals, particularly around the government agencies, which is one of the reasons we're quite a little bit more confidential about some of the things that we do. And we take a very, very client-centric approach because of the types of companies that we work with and the schemes that we run. We do tend to take an innovation, personal approach with our organizations, and our campaigns reflect that. So thank you for the introduction. I'll hand over to Ben.
Great, thank you very much. Really good to be on this session. Thank you all for making the time for this. Just to introduce myself, my name is Ben Romberg. I'm the head of strategy and planning at Gilroy. Gilroy are a B2B marketing agency, and we're delighted to have been supporting Atos with a lot of their account-based marketing initiatives, which is why we're joining together on this call today to talk about ABM measurement. We really believe in taking a full funnel growth approach towards campaigning, towards going after the strategic and most important customers and accounts that are in your market. And we're also big believers in being measurable in how you go to market. So making sure that everything you do is data driven and that you can prove the performance and show the capabilities back when it comes to looking at the efficacy of a campaign. We have decades of experience. We're well known for our strategic expertise, running campaigns both in EMEA and also in North America. And we're also a tier one partner to Sixth Sense. So we're very proud of the fact that we support Sixth Sense's customers, both in unlocking value and capability, but also working with them to consult, to advise, and to make sure that Sixth Sense users on the platform get the absolute best experience and unlock the value that we can clearly see in the capability it has. And that runs both across the measurements and analytics side of things, as well as the campaign level. So as you can see on the slides, we run account-based marketing campaigns, helping clients navigate the complex landscape, but we also work in the partner and channel, so supporting businesses that scale through structured partner programs and running demand generation and lead gen as well. So full service work in that respect. And yeah, we're excited to share some of those insights with you on today's webinar.
Excellent. And I'll just take a second here to introduce a little bit about Sixth Sense. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. Sixth Sense was founded a little over a decade ago. And, you know, the founders were really looking to solve and answer a simple question. Wouldn't our job as sales and marketing teams be a whole lot easier if we just knew who was in market to buy our product, right? Sounds so simple, but it's actually a really difficult question to answer because we live in a complex B2B buying landscape where we are selling to buying teams and we're selling to groups of folks that frankly like to be anonymous and resistant and like to do a lot of their research on their own. We're all buyers. You know, we've all been involved in tech evaluations. And so while it is a simple question, it is a bit more complex to answer. However, since our founding, and if you could go to the next slide, Ben, not only have we answered which accounts are looking, you know, to buy what you're selling, but when is the right time to reach out to them, right? When are those accounts in market and really ready to engage? Who should you be reaching out to on the buying team, right? Because again, we know B2B buying teams can be up to 20, 30, 40 people. And so who are the right personas? Who should you be contacting? How should you be contacting them? What should you be saying? And at this point, Sixth Sense will even do the saying for you. So AI is in our DNA. We have been revolutionizing revenue creation for over 10 years. And thank you again to everyone for joining in today to deep dive into a little bit more about how we do things at Sixth Sense. Now, Ben, if you could go to the next slide, I'd love to just hit on some of the topics that we'll be covering today and what you'll learn, right? Our goal is, again, to talk about measurement. And so how you should be measuring an ABM campaign with account engagement metrics, right? Leading indicators, lagging indicators. And in particular, today, we're actually going to be talking about a brand awareness campaign, which we know are notorious for being more difficult to analyze and measure. And really why you should dump some of the legacy metrics, right? Things like MQLs. Are they meaningful for what you're trying to do when you are implementing an account-based strategy? What I love about today's session is we're going to be taking you through a real campaign that Atos launched with the support of Gilroy. So this is not theoretical. We are showing you real data, real numbers, and a real live campaign so that you can learn from that. It is a brand awareness top of funnel campaign. And so, you know, let's jump in. I would just encourage everyone to submit any questions you have in the Q&A box. We have time set aside at the end to cover your questions. So continue to submit them and we'll address them at the end. And with that, Colleen and Ben, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. So thanks for that introduction. So what we wanted to talk a little bit about today is, as we say, it's a real program that Atos launched, and we and continue to work with Gilroy as our agency from an ABM perspective, as well as many other things. We're mainly going to kind of talk a little bit about the ABM today. So Atos is as I say, a technology company, and we work with many of our partners to go to market together. So we started a program with one of our large cloud hyperscalers to migrate 800 customers from their on-prem to the public cloud. And this is a 5-year program, which is actually quite unique. At least I've not really worked on a program up until this that had a start and an end date of 5 years. So the objective was to create a scalable ABM program that could support the migration of 70% of this 800 accounts into sales opportunities over 5 years, and measuring the impact of this joint approach. So we're going to talk a little bit more as we go through some of the pros and cons of having a 5-year program, what that looks like, how it's different from maybe some of the more shorter lived, a 3-month program. You've got an event that takes place in May, you lead up to it, you do the event, you do the post event, and then oftentimes I bet we're all guilty of a bit of tumbleweed before and after until the next event. This was something that needed to continue to churn. We need to continue to nurture. We need to be able to continue to report, not only to ourselves, but also to the business. So the campaign capabilities, working with 6sense was really important to us because it enabled real-time tracking and analysis of our customer engagement data. We have to be able to be agile in the environments that we all work in. And something that Simon said at the very beginning was, wouldn't it be great if we had a list of customers that we knew who and when they were going to buy something? Well, in a way, with the right platforms and the right tools, you kind of have a bit of insight at the very least to that crystal ball. Another part of the capabilities was around ABM tailored leading metrics to uncover what's this buying intent look like and inform our sales strategies. So again, when you're looking at a long campaign and you're looking at, people don't just move their, not to go technical, but they don't move their infrastructure from on-prem into a public cloud overnight. There's a lot that would go into that. So we need to really understand the different personas and the buying triggers and the intent data and what else they were looking at. And this is really important for us to then know what events to be at, who to engage with from a sales perspective, what particular regions are we seeing a little bit more insight or activity from. And the final piece was measuring the accounts through the buying stages, from awareness to decision to purchase. Because at the end of the day, although marketing can look really pretty and it can do lots of cool things and we can have lots of reports, at the end of the day, we need to see that revenue and we need to see the purchases. So that was really what we set out to do from a campaign setting, kind of just setting the scene for you.
Great. And in order to for us to sort of make sense of that, in order for us to make sure that we had the right framework for measuring the success that stepped into that, we created a structure, we created a measurement approach that you can see on screen that helped to map both the buying stages and in-market stages that we see within an account layer, again, to run that across the segments, the personas, the content, the channels, and the marketplace, the campaign context. So this is a framework that Gilroy used for a number of our clients, but specifically in the context of the Cloud Catalyst campaign, this came to life because it allowed us to understand where the account is in their buying stage, whether they're in a target or awareness phase or going through that consideration decision phase, if they're closer towards making the decision to migrate, the decision to move forwards with this program. Also allowed us to understand which personas, where they sit within the key segments, which regions were being targeted here, and how that aligned to the content. So how much content they engaged with, what channels had they used to engage with that content, what ad formats have they touched, and what's been the level of connection that we've had with that account so far. This allowed us to create a account score. And when we saw the account scoring metric, and when we were able to understand of the accounts in the program, that some of them were showing higher propensity, higher level intent, and also higher levels of engagement, it allowed us to prioritize those. I can say they need more special treatment, they need more effective sales nurture, and they also need to be moved further down the funnel. So it meant that we could be, with the program, we could be really strategic with the accounts that we were targeting and moving through these stages. But it also meant that we had a really good on-the-ground, real-time understanding of how they're performing. And there were certain moments as well where we conditions to reflect and look at what we'd seen happening over the course of the last month or over the last quarter. But it all meant that we could be future facing as well. And that's a really important point, and also why we collaborate such with Sixth Sense. A lot of this is about leading metrics. What's going to happen in the future? What can we see or expect from the accounts as we go through the cycle?
Ben, if I can just add one thing.
So in measuring it, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, if we go back to the other slide, something we discussed. Okay, I'll just talk through it. It was more also in terms of what Ben was talking about in terms of measuring, thank you, all of these metrics. What it also does with this platform is it allows us to see not only the positive sides of things, but also some things that we need to work on. So for instance, personas like techies, we came to find within this program that the techies want more of the how of it. How does it work? How am I going to get? They want more detail. They want more words on the documents. Whereas if we're speaking to maybe some of more of our exec or our sales teams and whatnot, they want to see things that are a little bit more visual. It also allowed us to be able to then cluster some of those things so that as we kept going, we could sort of pivot on not only the content itself, but the type of content that we were delivering on those subject matters. So it was just something that we wanted to make sure everyone was sort of aware of as well.
And in that vein, we also wanted to sort of make sure that there were clear sort of primaries set in place. So key success from the components, we look at the progress of engagement with the accounts, the content engagement, which helped an account score by performing assets of regions, the sales engagement, really clear on what we hand over.
I think Ben's having some audio issues, so he's going to come back. I will pull up the slides in the meantime, and we'll give him a second to rejoin.
Sorry about this, guys. We tested everything earlier.
All right. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing and share.
Apologies for that. Networking issues, but it should be back on now. Thanks for pulling up the slides. Great. So just to pick up. So in terms of the primary metrics that we aligned to the campaign, our focus was around making sure that we'd set conversion rates, both from the progress of the engagement through to pipeline development and conversion goals at the end of every program. We also had a clear view of the content engagement, so identifying top performing assets across the regions, and that also helped us to gain that account score. The sales engagement obviously is a key part of this as well, making sure that sales are both involved in the measurement and overall performance of the campaign assets, but also that they're aligned to the program and they're clear on what we're doing. This also involved us creating dedicated lead handover reports, so showing all of that rich engagement, showing all the measures, and making sure that they had access to that and they can see the effectiveness of it as well. This led to pipeline velocity increases, so the speed of the account movement through those stages from awareness, interest, into decision making. Supporting this with the secondary metrics, which align to some of the deeper insights that we'd expect to see as well for a campaign like this. Account engagement scores, so looking for those sales readiness signals for high priority accounts, and then the content ROI, so really understanding what is the return on the effective performance of certain assets that have media against them. How are they being distributed, and how can we see that effectiveness across the accounts that we're targeting? And the reason why these metrics matter is because they predict the likelihood of conversion using 6 sense signals and 6 QAs. They also really help us with the dashboard reporting. So this is where we're able to put it into one place, to visualize this, to track that input, and also make optimizations as we go through the campaign. So the outcomes, what this led to was that we were able to use these insights to adjust the messaging and tactics throughout the campaign cycle. This was a 5-year campaign, so we had to have clear points where we're able to optimize, where we're able to improve the overall performance of the campaign and review. That would take place in the form of QBRs, but also in the form of monthly reports, where we'd be able to check in and understand the improvements that we could make. And then the 6 sense data that aligns to both the sales and marketing for a better ROI and more measurable ABM results. All of these things led to better outcomes ultimately. And to bring that to life, we're going to talk a little bit about a key milestone moment in the Cloud Catalyst campaign that related to an event that took place last year.
Great. Thank you, Ben. So I don't know about you guys, but I love use cases. I love things to be brought to life. And Atos was in a very fortunate position in that we are the chief IT integrator for UEFA, which is all very exciting. And so if anybody was watching the Euros, then you will have possibly seen, or not realized, but probably seen the Atos logo many, many places. So I also really like milestone events that have a deadline that can't be moved. So as you can imagine, we couldn't run a campaign and decide that we had a couple of extra emails we wanted to send to a few regions and asked to delay the Euros competition. So this had to be done. It had to be done timely, and we really wanted to make a big splash. So the purpose of this was that we wanted to run a 6-week sports sponsorship social campaign. This was part of the 5-year, right? So what's always really important for us is to be able to show the technology, the innovation, the skills, the programs that we are able to do, as I said before, within the scientific community, within the technical community, and bring it to life on a large scale, but then be able to show how it would work for an actual end customer. So what we wanted to do is, this is the first year of the sponsorship with UEFA. And it was also the first year of the sponsorship that Atos had directly with our hyperscaler. We wanted this to continue. We wanted the sponsorship to continue. So we set out to create the hero asset, the hero video, dedicated landing page, media, social media, all the things that you would generally do and you would expect to see. But we also wanted to make sure that this was a really important part of a nurture program. So we went back to that 800 account list, that target list of the TAL, so that we could start to see not only are people engaging on our website about cybersecurity, but they're also engaging with us on actual use cases. And we were able to measure the impact. And I'll show you that through some of the slides in just a minute. And actually, we were able to do a full-blown case study with the measurable impacts as well. And it's something that we were able to then, through the dashboard, be able to highlight this to our senior execs. We were able to highlight it to sales, and we were able to gain interest well after the Euros of other kind of bespoke events or roundtables and whatnot, that once again is just continuing to nurture and to churn the overarching messages that we have within this organization. But it just kind of brought a bit more life into the program, because as you can imagine, running a 5-year program can sometimes get a little bit static. So we did all of this. The program was deemed a really, really huge success, in particular when you see some of the reporting that we did and having it only be for the 6 weeks. So if I go to the next slide and you'd like me to take through some of those stats, we can do that. Yeah, so again, middle of June to the middle of August, and I know certainly in Europe and I think probably the month of July in the US, not always the busiest time in terms of running campaigns and whatnot. So this worked out really well. 16 million impressions. You can see what we delivered across the media, 15,000 clicks across media channels, whatnot, 21% rate for the video ads, which we were really, really happy with that, most definitely. We reached 450 of our targeted accounts. So over half those accounts in a 6-week period. And we had 14 plus, and that was just measured during that 6 weeks, by the way, that were some of the key accounts that were engaged with the program, which would mean that they did more than just visit the website. Perhaps they went to the UEFA, they downloaded the case study, perhaps they looked at the video. So they're seeing some real intent there. You can see the video views across the channel, as well as the session. So 1 minute, 8 seconds that they were actually, which is 70% higher than just the normal Cloud Catalyst campaign. So, it's always good for me. We always like to be data-led, content-led and data-led. So data-led allows us to know from a marketing perspective what kind of content we want, how we want to cluster, the personas, all the things that we've talked about. But by being data-led lets us know and lets our stakeholders know really without bias whether the campaign was successful and where we might need to tweak. So this was a really important piece of our program.
Great. So a lot of this also is feeds into a discussion that we're having around the future of ABM measurements. We want to be able to gather all of the data, all of the insights, all of the engagement that we've seen across the campaign so far in order for us to be able to make predictive recommendations, to look at predictive intent. We want to leverage the data that we see on 6 Sense to be able to create predictive models so that we know when a campaign cycle is set to begin again, when a particular asset is going to be promoted, that we can understand what its likely performance will look like and drive the return on investment within the context of that. We also want to be able to adapt the campaigns so we can be much more data-driven in the actual focus of those assets within the context of content here as well. Predictive analytics, I think, is really key in all of this, and we know that being more sort of considered around the cycle in which an account works is a key part of looking to those future metrics. And as we shift from one-to-one to one-to-few, we also want to be able to tailor our campaigns to think about industries, clusters, regions, personas, and make much more of the customer journey stages so we can optimize and improve conversion along the way. We do believe that leading metrics show the way. We know that there's been a move away from legacy metrics like MQLs, and we know that higher quality metrics in this instance, looking at the 6 QAs or the 6 qualification assertions within the accounts, align with the sales capabilities and help to implement workflows within the context of subject matters that we're using for this campaign as well. So it just allows us to take a lot of the guesswork out of the campaigning that we're doing. It allows us to be a lot more focused around where we expect to see results and where we expect the opportunities to be in the accounts that we're focused on as well. All of that's to say we're still midway through, so a lot more work to come, and we expect to share more successful results as we go through the campaign delivery as well. I can see there's been quite a lot of questions as we've gone through the presentation as well. We'd like to spend the next short period of time just to go through some of those questions and take them from the audience as well.
All right, so let's do this. So thank you both for walking us through your campaign. We've got a couple of questions. I think the simplest one that's right in front of me is, what is a 6 QA? And if it's okay, I'm happy to answer that because a 6 QA is just a 6 Sense qualified account. So again, think about this, right? If you are selling in a B2B motion, you are selling to a buying group or at an account. And so one person doing a bunch of things would typically be an MQL, and you would qualify them and you would put them in the hands of sales. But one person isn't really making a buying decision. You have to engage that entire account. And so a 6 QA is basically a 6 Sense qualified account where our predictive models, our machine learning, and our AI is saying, this account is showing a meaningful amount of intent, and it's showing the same type of intent that your closed won deals, your open opportunities showed before they became an opportunity or before they became a deal. And so we're basically going out and finding more accounts that are exhibiting the right kind of signal and letting you know that you should be talking to this account because this looks like the types of accounts that you've sold to in the past. There's a question here. What CRM are you using?
So for the automated part of the campaign, in terms of email send outs, we're actually using Marketo for that. But for the focus in terms of lead data and lead capture, it really depends on the different sort of website structures that sit underneath the personalized pages we're running as well. I think the subtext to that question is, how does that connect into the measurement that we see for a campaign like this? And of course, one of the benefits of working with 6sense is that there are lots of ways to integrate the data that you get from your CRM, that you get from your campaign providers, and link it in using APIs so that it can all appear in one dashboard or one campaign view. And that's something that we're really keen on doing within the context of account-based marketing campaigns like this, which is ensuring that everything is connected up, and that any activity that's taking place that will influence the account can be brought into the dashboard, can be brought into the view that you're generating across the campaign. So making sure that there's a connection is really a key part of the approach here as well.
Yeah. There's a question from Michelle. Initially, you mentioned the notion of losing the MQL for ABM. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on this, because I am pretty against it due to multiple factors. So Ben, Colleen, if you want to answer, and then I'm happy to give my POV as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a hot topic. It does definitely cause a lot of debate. I think that a lot of what we've seen is that the MQL becomes just a holding stage, almost a holding pattern. Really, what you're looking for is an indicator that the account is ready to be passed over to a sales team and pursued as an opportunity. If you pass over, or if an MQL doesn't get to that opportunity stage, then it doesn't really deserve to be treated as an opportunity, and therefore pass through into your system and get the same level of nurture. I think the other challenge that we've seen with MQLs is that they are treated as the be-all and end-all of a marketing campaign, and that's absolutely not the outcome we want. We want to make sure that it carries right the way through into the sales cycle, into the customer lifetime cycle as well. Handing over or developing MQLs as a campaign outcome is definitely going to be a thing of the past, we believe. And I know that's an opinion that 6sense and Atos share in this context as well. But there's a lot of lively debate about it, and I know that there are still people who are focused on that and do rate them. But there's a lot more we could talk about there. It probably deserves a session in its own right, I know. But it's a good point.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say to that. If you are in an MQL world today, you are not going to switch overnight, right? That's kind of an unrealistic expectation to say, today our success measure has been driving inbound leads, and now all of a sudden in an ABM world that goes away. What we're saying is that at the end of the day, an account and multiple people within a buying team showing relevant intent is really what we should be moving towards, and what we should be looking to drive. It is not about the individual person necessarily. You need to influence, engage, attract, and educate multiple people within an account. And so that one simple metric is really not telling the same picture, and might not even be the right thing to prioritize for your sales to go after or start to engage. And so even if you are in an MQL model, augmenting your MQLs with the fact that this person is doing something that's really important and we want to talk to them, but is the account that person is at as a whole showing intent? If so, that's even more important. And so prioritizing your MQLs with an account-based score is a great first step. Encouraging your BDRs and SDRs when they are working in MQL to open up 6sense and CRM and see everything else that account cares about, what topics they're researching, what pages they're anonymously consuming on your website. All of that should really inform the outreach. And over time, you will start to move away from that sort of singular measure of success to actually going after accounts showing intent and then engaging with them in the right way.
The only thing I would add to that, and agree with both of you, is I think what we're just essentially saying is the nurture is just taking a lot longer now. It really is, as you say, Simon, to get more personas within the organization to want to do this. But it's also, as marketeers, we add more value the longer that we're nurturing them. So if we said to sales, or we said to the region, or how SDRs, oh, we've got these 2 bits of content, or this is now qualified as an MQL, that's fine. But actually, if we can go to them and say, what events have you got going on in region? What other campaigns have you got? Because I've got these guys, they seem to be engaging on this. And then you integrate into your regions, or you integrate into sales at that nurture level, as opposed to the MQL level, which is, let me pass that off to you and I'm going to go work on something else. So that's really, it's nurture. It's in essence nurture.
Yeah. We have a question from an anonymous user. What kind of metrics and analytics are on your ABM dashboards? How often do you review these with your sales and marketing teams?
Yeah, so it really varies. I think the way in which we try to bring all of that together and turn it into a sort of a culmination that's really relevant to sales as well as to marketing is to make sure you've got an account score. And that account score will include touch points across the ads that are running, touch points across the content that's being promoted. When somebody visits the website and they're coming from a target account, what actions they took, how many times they visited. All of those elements come together to inform that account score. The higher the score, matched with the intent, matched with the fact this is a strategic account in a program like this, means we put more weighting and more attention towards it. So what we've tried to do really is avoid looking at individual metrics or individual measures that might show a little bit of intent or a little bit of engagement, but not the full picture. You want to bring that all together and say, actually, there's something that goes beyond here, and that's really put together in the account scoring exercise that we run. And Sixth Sense is great for being able to bring that to life. It helps us to understand as well where the account is in the buying stage and what engagement metrics have been used to indicate it should be there.
Yeah, and things like if you have a target account list, where do those accounts sit in terms of intent? Are they early stage? Are they late stage? Okay, that's great. Then what proportion of them are you able to successfully move into a higher intent stage? Really important to know. Which specific tactics are moving those accounts, right? What campaigns, digital, nurtures, trade shows, events, which things and tactics are helping move those accounts into higher intent stages? You can get all of that using the Sixth Sense reporting. There is a resources tab on the menu on the right-hand side where we have put in a couple of other resources around ABM measurement. I think there's a webinar in there or a view where I can actually show you the dashboards we use internally at Sixth Sense. So plenty of resources for you if you're interested. We'll go to Andrew's question. Is this how you create segments too, based on the 6QA rather than the accounts you identify as signature accounts? On that, I would say, Andrew, it depends on the campaign, right? If you are going in a long-term campaign, like Colleen just mentioned, you have 800 accounts that you care about, you really don't only necessarily want to be looking at the 6QA because not all of those accounts are showing intent. If your goal is to engage all 800, you want to have a comprehensive brand to demand strategy. Even those accounts showing no intent, you want to get in front of. As they start to show early intent, you want to be talking to them based on the fact that they are in an education mode. You want to serve up thought leadership type content. You want to educate them about your differs and why, what your solution is unique and something they should learn about. And when they do hit a 6QA, you want to then get sales involved and actually, pass those accounts over to sales. So I would say segments in many cases do involve the 6QA, but they should almost always involve intent stage at least. Are they early stage, late stage? But I'll give you an example of a segment that I look at that probably has nothing to do with a 6QA. I want to know when companies are researching my competitors, and I just, I want to be alerted for that. And that's a very simple segment where Sixth Sense provides you such granular intent data that you can say, show me all accounts in my ICP that are looking at my competitors or researching my competitors. Nothing to do with the 6QA, nothing to do with intent. Now, if you add an intent, right, a high intent account looking at my competitor, all of a sudden that is even more interesting, right? So use the segmentation capabilities of Sixth Sense to really build the right audiences and then make sure you've got really curated programs that speak to them.
Absolutely. And I would add to that looking at segments within the context of regions or specifically within the context of industries or perhaps just within certain clusters of accounts is a really great way to sort of pull the activity that you're looking at. You'll see that there are ways to prioritize areas. So prioritize perhaps a subsect or a particular cluster of accounts within a vertical like financial services, and say there's something happening there that needs more focus and more attention, and perhaps even dedicated content or dedicated messaging to move them further down the funnel.
Yeah. There's a question on how you combat competitors with a generic company name. On that, I would say company name is one version of a competitive view, right? If they have a very generic name, maybe augment that name with some additional things like their product name, the platform name, right? There's more to a competitor than just the name of the company. There's the platforms they use. There might be specific differs or things they've trademarked. A holistic keyword strategy that you input into 6th Sense incorporates all of those signals as opposed to just the simple name of a competitor. So I would augment it accordingly.
Yeah.
Is that stacking the keyword or all in one? I would do both. You have unlimited keywords with the 6th Sense platform. I would put in individual keywords, as well as if there's terms or series of words that typically go together. I would incorporate all of that, right? More is more. And again, Victoria's just thrown in the resources tab. There's additional measurement resources like this one. Colleen, I would love to just kind of hit on, what I love so much about your campaign. And it's two things. Number one is focus. You care about 800 accounts. So you are starting with clarity, and you're almost at the beginning of the campaign with that incredible framework that Ben shared by Gilroy. You are mapping where those 800 accounts sit in terms of showing no intent, early intent, or late stage intent. So already you kind of are starting a campaign, not doing one size fits all across the 800, but really honing in and meeting that prospect where they are in the journey. And then the second point I would say around that, not doing a one size fits all, is the lenses you brought to personas and the lenses you brought to topics that you should be engaging them with, and also different types of content based on where they are in the journey. We're almost at time, but if you could wrap it up and just give us, a little bit more insight into the planning and the amount of work it took to just get that stood up and how that yielded results for you. I'd love to end on that note.
Happy to, because I think it is unique. So not forgetting on day one, we had 800 accounts and they were all top of funnel. It really was because we didn't really have the intent data. We didn't have anything. So you start off with kind of what's that joint value proposition, and you start to work your way down, and you start to see, you take what are these 4 elements of the program that are going to be important? Is it cybersecurity? Is it sustainability? Is it migration? Then you start to delve into that a little bit more, and then you start to speak. It's constant engagement, if I'm honest with you. Simon and Ben would agree. I think it's having, as Ben said, these quarterly meetings that you can analyze the data, that you can spend the time. That's something I think oftentimes as marketeers, we don't give ourselves enough just desk time. Actually, let me concentrate, see what this is, and see where we need to pivot. The other thing that's been incredibly important about the data is, and I'll just give you some direct quotes. Sustainability, not a big topic for us. I'll be hearing from and I'll go back and say, what's really interesting? All of our reporting shows sustainability week in, week out is the highest click rate that we have. What's also interesting? This particular piece of content on sustainability is scoring out. So you've got data, you have credibility with your stakeholders in that. And then we just continue to pivot. So in a snapshot, that's really what some of the content reporting is delivered for us.
Incredible. Thank you, Colleen and Ben, for sharing your insights and sharing this example. Thank you to all of our attendees for being part of this Level Up campaign. Almost 5,000 of you have been through this eight-month series with us. The recordings will be available at the link Victoria just provided. Please continue to engage. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to 6th Sense. We're here to answer even more. And I hope to see you all again. Thank you so much.